Welcome everyone. I don't know what happened. I think the music was overlapping. I don't know. Let me know if you wait a moment. Okay. Sorry. I was I kept the tab open when I copied the link, and this is not good for you because probably you've heard multiple times. Sorry everyone. So welcome to this week in Svelte. This is this week installment of this week in Svelte. As usual, I'm Paolo. I will be your host for today, and we will be joined in a while by Loris, which will give us our community showcase. So let's keep a look at the usual agenda. If I can find it, here we go. The agenda is, as usual, we will go over the changelog. We have some quick fact and announcement, just once actually. I want to share something with you. We will have the Loris with his community showcase, and then I will have a small Q&A, a small question that I want to share with you. So let's begin with our usual changelog. So once again, I want to thank you for this beautiful website, sveltechangelog.vercel.app, that you can visit too. So let's go. Let's start with the Svelte releases. So I've seen something, and I think there are some interesting bit in Svelte 5 too. So first thing first, we have this new derived dot called rune, which is very interesting because like derived since today, like since last week, you had to pass an expression to derived. So, and I think I can show these. So if I open Svelte 5 preview.vercel.app, I don't know if this is something. Okay, let's remove this because I want to show you. Okay, so we have a script tag, and if we have a state, so let count is equal to $state 0. Since the last week, basically, if you wanted to have a derived, you have to do double. It's equal as derived count times 2, which is good because I mean it's very concise, it's very easy, and if we do button and we show the count, and if we do button and we show the double, and if we add an on-click listener here to count plus plus, we can see that like the derived work very easily. Now, for simple expressions, this is fine because again, you don't want to write a lot of code, but sometimes you have to write a lot of code because maybe you have to do some very weird calculation before doing the derived, and so maybe it's useful to have that in a function. And with derived dot call, you can now pass a function, and the return value of that function will actually be the derived value. So in this case, this is literally the same, but you can have a function. So this is something that a lot of people asked for because they don't want to write ifs, they don't want to extract to a different function, they just want to write an inline function like this. And the maintainers like decided to give that to us, which is pretty interesting. Handle event delegation correctly when having sibling event listener. I don't know if this is something because there was a problem before where you basically could not portal something, and the concept of portaling is something that, for example, MeltUI uses extensively, because if you are rendering, for example, a dialogue inside your nested tree of components. The dialogue to be really accessible needs to be in the body. So what Melt UI was doing, but Melt UI, but even other component libraries, was literally taking your content, your dialogue, and move it to the body. And this caused problems before in Svelte 5, and now it does not anymore. So it's cool. This is also very interesting. I read that the other day. This is a breaking change, but it's cool because snippets can now take multiple arguments, support default parameters. The type signature has changed, obviously, of the snippets, and that I think is a breaking change. But in general, this is a good thing because now snippets can take multiple arguments instead of just one argument with the object, which is cool. Generate T, replace to do error, add proper typings. Yeah, scroll length, event type, fine. The Twinned store, which is something very cool. I don't know if you never used it, but basically allows you to have a value smoothly transition between two values. Very cool. Bindings with TypeScript assertions. Yeah, these are all the usual stuff. So the interesting bits were the derive.call and the snippet one. Very cool. But let's look at SvelteKit, which did not release anything this week. So it's fine. Yep, you can do dim. SvelteKit did not release anything, so this was SvelteKit 2.5.0, which was released last week. So that's it for the changelog. Let's talk about quick fact and announcement. And there's very small fact that I want to showcase with you is this wonderful video that our Lord and Savior Jesus published. Like Prismic published this very interesting interview that I don't remember the interviewer name, but it's also a very present person inside the web dev community. Alex Trost, that's it. Interviewed Rich Harris all about Svelte 5, SvelteKit 2.0, because this was recorded in December. And it's really interesting because you really can have an insight around what the maintainers are trying to build with Svelte and Svelte 5. It's a bit of history, so how Rich Harris come to Svelte and what are Rich and other maintainers' vision around Svelte 5. Very interesting and suggested look. And now let's move to the interesting bit, the community showcase. So I will I will add to this stage Loris, which is this guy, which will present to us his new library. And I don't know, do you work for Inlang, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah. So he worked for Inlang, which is a very cool ecosystem all around internationalization, I-18. And they recently released Paraglide.js, which is a JavaScript library for internationalization. And what you are talking about today is a specific, I don't know, it's just a preprocessor. There's also a bit more, right?
It is a routing integration for SvelteKit, so it handles all the internationalized routing.
Yeah, it's to have internationalization routing, but it's enough. So I will remove my screen. I will add Laurie's screen to this, and I will remove myself so that he can talk about Paraglide.js. And as usual, if you have any question, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I will highlight some question for him. We can have a Q&A after his showcase. And you also have the link. I see that there is Max that is waiting on the stage. So later, if you want to talk, we can definitely add you to the stage and we can have a discussion. Have a good presentation.
Okay, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm here to talk about localized routing in SvelteKit and the new library I've built for it, Paraglide.js Adapter SvelteKit. This will make it way easier to build multilingual apps using SvelteKit. It will handle all the localized routing, internationalized routing for you, and it's a breeze to set up, as we will see. First, quickly, what is localized routing? Localized routing basically just means that all the paths in your URLs are nicely translated, but you can still render the same route with them, just in different languages. This is kind of the harder version of regular internationalized routing, where you just have the language in the URL, but all the paths are the same. Now, stuff like this might seem like a small detail, but consider that most of the world's population doesn't speak English, so localization can unlock a huge number of people that you can reach. And very often when you're on an app or a site where it's in a different language, there's a lot of open questions about whether or not that business is going to be able to serve you well. So if you're on an e-commerce site and the language is a bit off and everything, it's just in that uncanny valley of where it's not very good. You have a lot of open questions. Can they deliver to where I live? Will the customer service be good? Are they going to be able to handle payment? And if you do localization very, very well, you have the opportunity to answer all those questions without really having to explain anything. If you just do it well, people feel that it's correct, and they're just going to trust you implicitly. So you have a real opportunity here if you do it well. Now, about a month ago, I spoke at Svelte London, also about localization. And I came to the unfortunate conclusion that there was no way to do localized routing in SvelteKit well. And at the time, that was true. But since then, we've gotten the reroute hook. This was added in SvelteKit 2.3, and it allows you to render any route in response to any given path. So if the browser requests de/über uns, you can use the reroute hook to instead render the about page. This does not change the URL, so the URL that the user sees would still be de/über uns, but you don't need to reflect that in your file system. And this is really, really convenient. And it enables everything that we're about to see. Now, Paraglide Adapter SvelteKit is a routing library that makes use of this new reroute hook to make localized routing very, very easy and very easy to set up. We released this about a week ago. It already got a few users. We got some great feedback. And it's what we're going to learn about today. Now, I want to quickly draw a distinction. Some of you may be familiar with Paraglide.js. Paraglide.js is an internationalization library, makes it very, very easy to load messages, manage messages, and it has an interesting compiler approach, and we will be seeing that, we will be using that. Paraglide.js Adapter SvelteKit specifically handles the routing in SvelteKit apps. So that's a separate package, and there could be adapters for other frameworks. We're going to be talking about SvelteKit today. And it integrates with Paraglide.js seamlessly. Now, when we wanted to build such a routing library, such an integration for a framework, we had a few goals in mind. First of all, localized routing, just because it's cool. But we also wanted the experience of turning your existing app that has a single language into a multi-language app. We wanted to make that transition as easy as possible. So we didn't want you to have to change anything in your routes folder. So usually when you add multiple languages, you need to move everything into a language parameter and change everything. You get a giant commit out of it. We didn't want to do that. And we wanted to automatically rewrite all your existing links. I've got a typo there. That's supposed to say hrefs. Sorry. So if you have a large app that already has hundreds and hundreds of links, you shouldn't have to go through all your links and rewrite them one by one. That it should just work. It should automatically translate your links according with the correct language. So if you're rendering the German version of a page, all your links will point to the German version. And of course, keep it SEO friendly. Yeah. And I don't want to brag, but I think we did a pretty good job. So I think we achieved all those goals to a satisfactory standard. Now there's a lot of ways you can build multilingual apps, and it's kind of the spectrum from on the one hand you have static sites, stuff that you would build with Astro. On the other hand, you have something like Figma. It's a super interactive app, I need my mouse to explain this. So we're here about Figma, where we have a super interactive app that doesn't really get indexed usually. And on the left, here's a super static app, maybe documentation page, where everything gets indexed. And generally, if you're over here in the super interactive part and your app doesn't get indexed, you probably shouldn't be doing internationalized routing at all. You should probably be putting the language settings into a cookie and then using that to manage your language state. But if your page does get indexed, you need to start worrying about internationalized routing because it is way better for SEO. Now, the library we've built kind of serves this middle ground here, where you have an app that uses database, does get indexed, maybe an e-commerce site, but it is too complex. It does too much data loading for you to just have separate +page.svelte files for each route in each language. So kind of if you're in this middle ground here, where it's too much data loading for something like Astro, but you're getting indexed, then you should consider using this library. Now, I'm going to be doing a demo where I'm going to be showing you how to set up internationalized routing, and I wanted to do it in kind of a semi-real app, so I'm going to be doing it in Svelte. So we're going to be adding a second language to Svelte. You're going to see how to set up Paraglide, how to set up the routing, how to use messages, and also how to get localized routing working with all the translated links. So I'm going to switch to VS Code here. And we're going to start by initializing Paraglide. That's the internationalization library we're going to be using. Just run the init command, and it sets up everything that we need. You can see create a project folder with our settings in them. So currently I want to be using English and German, so I'm going to tell it that I want English and German. And over here, you can configure where it's going to load the messages from. So here I've configured messages / language tag.json. That means it's going to expect us to have our messages in a folder called messages and in JSON files named according to the language. I'm going to create those real quick here. And now we should be able to have our messages. I'm going to manually run the Paraglide compiler real quick, just so you can see what the messages are going to look like. You will not have to do this later. You will not have to do this manually. Okay, but Paraglide.js, if you haven't seen it before, it acts as a compiler. It takes in kind of these JSON files for the messages, and it spits out actual JavaScript files for each message, for each language, where each message is an individual export. And having each message as an individual export has a bunch of advantages. The main one is that they're tree-shakeable, which means that you don't need to worry about which messages get loaded on which pages. All of that gets taken care of by Vite, because it can just figure out which messages are used because they're just regular JavaScript exports. This makes managing messages much, much easier. Now let's continue by installing the adapter. I'm going to be using pnpm, just install the package, and then this is going to come with a Vite plugin. What this Vite plugin will do, it will automatically run the compiler that I've just showed you whenever your messages change. It's just going to manage all that for you, so you don't have to do it by hand. I'm going to tell it where I put my where my project is. That's just the default path. And I'm going to be telling it where to put the compiler output. Usually that's source/paraglide. So now if we run the dev server, you can see it ran the compiler and just the usual Svelte app. I assume most of you have seen this already. Now let's actually start adding internationalized routing. So we will need to configure the adapter, kind of initialize it. By convention, we usually put this in lib/i18n, but can put it anywhere you want, really. And you initialize the adapter with this create i18n function exported from the adapter, and you pass it the paraglide runtime and from the usual paraglide library. Then, in order to actually start having everything translated, you actually need to use this configuration. So by itself, it doesn't do anything. We provide this paraglide.js component that's responsible for translating all the hrefs and just pass it the i18n object. Actually import it. And then we also need to set up all the hooks that are necessary for the routing. Let's start with the brand new reroute hook. That's just got added. That's also provided here for you. Just hit it like this. And let's also add the hook on the server, the handle hook. This handle hook here is necessary in order to set the long attribute on your HTML tag, as well as the direction attribute. By default, it will look for this string here. So if you add this placeholder here as the long attribute, it will automatically get replaced with the current language, whatever that is. And you can do the same for the text direction. This way, we can be sure that all your SEO stuff is still going to be okay. Let's quickly make sure I didn't forget anything. I don't think I did. And what should be possible now is I should be able to visit /de, and I'll still get the same page. Now, we haven't actually translated anything yet, but you can see that there is, in my routes folder, didn't do anything that would usually give you the ability to go to /de. But here we can also go to /de/about and go to /de/Svelte. And it just works. Could also go to /en. But here in my project, I've configured English as my default language, so you can actually omit the default language in the URL. Next, let's actually quickly look at the source, page source here, because you can see it's replaced the language correctly, and I misspelled something here, sorry. I'm gonna fix that later. Yeah, so let's actually use some messages so that we can actually see something change on screen when we switch languages. So I'm just gonna quickly on the home page, I'm gonna make this a translatable string. So yeah. So let's actually define a translation here. So here I have my hello, and I can use this on my page with by importing from the messages file from Paraglide. So by convention, you usually do a bytecode import here because Vite is clever enough to optimize that away. So you don't actually need to worry about importing each individual function. Just gonna work. So I can do hello. You can see it's fully type safe. And here on the home page, and when I visit the home page here now, I should be able to see hello. And if I go to a German page, I see hello. Isn't that nice? You can also see that if I start using the links here, they're automatically translated. So if you go to the header here, all the links here are still pointing to /about, /Svelte, but because I'm on the German page, they actually got rewritten. So if you inspect here, this will got automatically rewritten to be going to /de, and over here it got rewritten to go to /about. Now I could go through here, unfortunately, and translate every single string. But unfortunately, usually I have this VS Code extension here that's automatically extracts the strings and populates them here in the JSON files. So don't need to go there manually. Unfortunately, that's not working right now. So that's the demo effect. That's unfortunate, but this is kind of the equivalent to I18 and ally if you have used that. Something else that's interesting is if we look at the page here, and let's look at the head of the page. If I can find that for a moment, you're going to see that it added these alternate links for each language. So for SEO purposes, if you have two different links that are the same page but in different languages, you're supposed to have these alternate links here to make sure that everything works, that Google understands where it needs to go. And as you can see here, these got added automatically, so that's also something you don't need to worry about. Now let's also do some localized routing, as I promised. Let's try to rename this /about here. Let's make this an actual German string. So here, where we called create INTN, we can add a path names property, and this is kind of a map for which names you want a route to have in different languages. So here I have my /about page, and I'm going to say in English I want this to be /about, and in German I want this to be /über uns. I'll save. Let's go to the homepage here real quick. When I go here, you can see it went to /über uns, and that's wonderful. It really is that easy. Something you can also do if you have a bit of a more complex app. Let's say you have a user administration /users. You can also have parameters in here. These will just get passed through. And just going to work. I'm not going to add a page here, but I think you're going to be able to take my word for that. Now, another common situation that you're going to have is maybe you have an API that's you don't want where you don't want the routes to be translated. This API is only one language, so you can make sure that the adapter doesn't interfere in these pages with the exclude property here. Just pass it the regular expressions saying start with /API, ignore it, and then it's going to leave you alone. I also promised that it's going to be able to do text directions. You can define different which text directions each language has. Also here in the create INTN function, this is kind of your one-stop shop for for configuring everything. And right now it's yelling at me because I forgot to define them for all pages. And you can see it replaced them nicely. I'm pretty sure I have a typo somewhere because it's not replacing it on the server right now. But I'm going to fix that later. I'm going to be uploading this example to GitHub, so you're going to be able to see everything here. You're going to be able to play around with it. Yeah. Now, it's quickly, I've shown you how we can, that the internationalized routing works, that you can do it, but there's still one kind of important thing left to do, and that's actually switching languages. So we can actually tell, so I'm here in the header file, and we can actually tell the adapter to put a link into a specific language by also adding an href long attribute. So let's add kind of two links here, one for German, one for English, and the only difference here is the href long attribute. And as you can see here, I can now switch between the English and German versions. You can only really see the difference here on this hello here because that's the only thing I've translated so far. But I think you're going to be able to take my word for it that this works. Another common issue that you're going to run into with ITNN routing and localized routing is these kind of checks here with the ARIA. We're trying to check are we currently on a certain route? There's really two good ways of doing this, I think. The first is to actually check the route ID instead of the actual path URL. Tends to work pretty well. So here, as you can see now, even if I switch between the English and the German version, I still get the little caret here. Before that wasn't the case because it didn't recognize the German version as it being on the home page. Now, my language switcher here is still a bit broken because it always takes me to the home page. And here's kind of one of my least favorite parts about the adapter, to be honest. And that's when you're trying to get a link to the current page in a different language. So the way you do that is here you pass it itnn.route, and then you give it the current path name. And what this route function here does is it gives you the untranslated version of the current path name. And then because it's in href attribute here, the adapter will then translate it into a different language. So it's my least favorite part personally, but you only ever need to do this when you're switching languages. Otherwise, all the links are completely untouched. And now, as you can see, language switcher just works. And again, with this beautiful translated paths. Now, functionality-wise, honestly, that's it. It just makes the setup for this kind of stuff super easy. It handles all language state, handles all the routing, and as you can see, we really didn't have to mess with our routes here at all. And most of the app remained completely unchanged. So if I can find where the studio is again, that's it from my side. I'd be very happy to answer questions, maybe help you a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very cool. We actually have one question from the chat, which is question: is it possible to have many files for a single language? For example, en.general.js, en.out.js?
No, at the moment, not. And there again, that's because honestly, you don't need to. Because Vite can automatically figure out which translations are used on which page, just based on which imports you are using. There actually is no need to split your messages up into these namespaces because the splitting just happens automatically.
I think that, this is something that I actually like. I'm using I'm using Inlang, and so it's actually something that I kind of run into too. I think like this is actually more of like to be able to split the actual strings in files, different files, so that you can keep them separate. But I agree, like using your library is, I can assess that like is not a huge problem at all. I also think like I took a look at the adapter. Like you can write quite easily an adapter for Inlang, and so I think this is probably doable in some way. So thank you for this question. I have a question. So yeah, I while you were like showing the thing, I actually think like I had the thought of would it be possible to use the messages inside the URL? So for example, you could I don't know, define that it's referring to a message inside your messages instead of defining every single.
Sure, I can quickly share my screen again.
Yes.
And let's actually do that. So if we import from the messages file here, this is to use the correct syntax. The messages themselves, they're just regular JavaScript functions. So it's you can just use them kind of here to help construct these strings. So let's in the messages. Let's quickly add. Let's say call this path about, and it's also added in English. And then over here, we can just do /path about, and then here I'm going to explicitly say that I want this one to be in English, and I want this one to be in German.
Okay.
And this should just work. Did I make mistakes? So, TypeScript doesn't like this. Lazy to fix it right now. But if we go back to the browser here, can see /none. That's wonderful.
I think you did not recompile, probably.
No, it did recompile. The plugin should automatically recompile. I'm not quite sure what happened there, to be honest. I added 2 pluses.
Okay.
So that's not going to happen. So now you can see properly use the one from the.
And this also mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, because from the inline runtime, you can also get the list of languages, right?
Yes.
So you could, in theory, also automate the creation of the whole object instead of repeating, right?
Yes, you could do that. But need a bit more code. But actually, I'm going to write it down because that's a really good idea for a helper function.
Yep.
Where you kind of give it this here as a reference, and it's going to give you that in all languages. It's really good.
It's a good. I know I am like over optimizing. Like I crave for this kind of stuff where the developers have to do less job.
No, me too.
I'm a lazy person.
It's a good quality to have.
Thank you very much, Loris. Obviously, I think Loris will stick around. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in chat. I can bring him back. It's fine. Thank you very much, Loris.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And obviously, I think if you like, they can find you on Twitter as Loris_Sigrist, right?
Cyclist, yeah, and otherwise I'm always super active in the Inlang Discord. So if
Yeah.
you go to Inlang's Discord, just ask a question, and usually you get an answer within minutes.
And a quick update from Alice. And as I was explaining, like, yeah, it's more regarding the splitting of the JSON file to manage the files better. Also, like, I think, again, this, I think it's very doable with an adapter for Inlang.
Yes, it is.
I don't know if. Oh, maybe yes. I think because if you then want to use the Inlang ecosystem to also provide the translators the ability to translate those string, it might be get tricky. Maybe I don't know why, but I never I did not try it.
No, I can answer that real quick. It's perfectly doable. Earlier, I thought that you wanted separate output files for the different namespaces. So there's no need for that. But for separate JSON files or so, that's totally doable.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Loris.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. We are back at me and you. We are almost there. We are almost finished. The very last thing that I want to show you is the very last part of our of our weekly appointment, which is we don't have a discussion, but we have a small question that I want to answer for you. And this is a question that sometimes I get people like people are asking in the Discord, specifically in the Svelte 5 channel. And it's, when will Svelte 5 be available? Well, first thing first, it's already available, so you can actually install Svelte 5 and give it a spin. And also, this will greatly help because the more it gets used, the more bug we can find before the actual release. But obviously, I think the real answer is when can I know when Svelte 5 will actually launch? And there's no exact ETA, but what you can do, and I will share my screen, is if you go to the issue in the Svelte repository and you go to milestone, you will find a series of milestone, and there's also a 5.0 milestone. This is mostly for tracking, so don't there's no due date, as you can see, but here you can track the progress, basically. So when you will see like a bunch of these issue closed, more closed than open, we are probably close to an actual release. Now, don't let this number scares you, because like this is literally like the maintainers triage issues, and whenever there is an issue of some sort, they will stick a milestone for 5.0, and then they will actually decide if it's actually worth to if it's a bug. They have to look at the documentation, they have to look at the actual reproduction and stuff like that. So don't be scared about this. But if you want to track the progress for Svelte 5, you can do it with the milestone. So this is a small answer that for you. I think that's it for today. It was, I think, a very good episode. Thank you, Loris, again for presenting this very cool library, because we need internationalization. Thank you, everybody, for showing up, and I will see you in the next week.